Resourceful Designer, episode 265, The Psychology of Pricing, Part 2.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. If he could have any superpower, he'd choose telekinesis, the ability to move things with his mind. Mark Dacote.
Darn right. Imagine being hungry and just being able to grab a snack and a drink from the kitchen without having to get up off the couch. Oh man, that would be the life. Anyway, in this week, I continue my Psychology of Pricing series with more tactics that you can use for yourself and for your clients to make prices you show more appealing. And let me say, I received a lot of great feedback from last week's episode, with many people saying they were going to implement some of the strategies I shared. So, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, part 1, I suggest you do so before listening to this one. Now, after sharing some more tactics with you today, I'm going to share a trick that I've been using for many years to make sure that I never miss anything when I'm creating or updating a design layout. Because there's nothing worse than sending a job to print only to later discover that you forgot something. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But for now, let's continue with the Psychology of Pricing, Part 2. Now, just like last week's episode, the tactics that I'm sharing with you here were taken from an in-depth article written by Nick Kolenda on the psychology of pricing. And I will link to Nick's article in the show notes for this episode in case you're interested in reading through it yourself. Now, I'm presuming that you already listened to last week's episode, so without any preamble, let's get right to the tactics that can help you when displaying prices. So tactic number 10 is position low prices towards the left. According to a 2002 study, when designing a layout, you should position prices to the left if you want them to appear smaller. Now, it sounds strange, but here's the reasoning. Researchers show that people associate directional cues with certain concepts. Up is usually associated with good, whereas down is usually associated with bad. You give a thumbs up to things you like and a thumbs down to things you don't like. In the Christian faith, good people go up to heaven and bad people go down to hell. This notion of up being good and down being bad triggers spatial association. And in 2004, a study found that people recognized positive words faster when those words were positioned at the top of a layout, and they recognized negative words faster when they were positioned near the bottom of a layout. Well, this same principle of spatial association applies to numbers, including prices. When people conceptualize numbers, they imagine a horizontal line with numbers going up from the left with the low number to right with the higher numbers. And since people associate smaller numbers with belonging on the left, positioning prices on the left side of a layout can trigger someone to associate it with a smaller value. Now, the opposite works with larger numbers. If you want a number to appear larger, position it on the right side of a layout. For example, for a message reading, receive a $20 credit for every person you refer, you may want to place the $20 towards the right side of the layout so that those seeing it will associate it with a large number, making the offer seem more appealing. So the whole point of this tactic is to change the perception of a fixed price. If you want $20 to seem like a great low price, position it accordingly on the left. Whereas, if you want $20 to seem like a real nice reward, position it accordingly on the right. Now, because of these directional cues associated with spatial concepts, the optimal position for your prices are, of course, the bottom left layout, if you want them to appear very low, because again, low prices, lower on the sheet, plus towards the left. And if you want something to appear really big, you put it on the upper right corner. So that was tactic number 10. Now, tactic 11 is to expose customers to 2 multiples of your prices. Now, my first time reading through this tactic, I have to say that I thought, come on, this can't be true. But the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. A 2011 study showed that customers exposed to 2 multiples of a price reacted more favorably to that price. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. In Nick's article, he shows 4 ads from Pizza Hut, a popular pizza chain that you may be familiar with. Well, all 4 ads were for the same price, $24. Now, the first ad number 1, was for 3 medium pizzas with unlimited toppings. You can get as many toppings as you want. So 3 medium pizzas. The second ad was for 4 small pizzas, again with unlimited toppings. Now for ad 3, they went back to 3 medium pizzas, but instead of unlimited toppings, it said 8 toppings each. And in ad 4, back to 4 small pizzas, instead of unlimited toppings, it says 6 toppings each. Now I know that's a lot to keep track of, so ad 1, 3 medium pizzas with unlimited toppings. Ad 2, 4 small pizzas with unlimited toppings. Ad 3, 3 medium pizzas again, but this time with up to 8 toppings each. And ad 4 was 4 small pizzas again, but this time with 6 toppings each. Well, the study conducted showed that customers were actually more favorable to the ads 3 and ad 4, the 2 ads that actually limited the topping. They preferred those ads or would be drawn to those ads more so than the ads that showed or offered unlimited toppings, even though those first 2 ads were an economically better deal. Why is that? Well, according to this study, it's because ads 2 and 3 incorporated multiples of the price. It was 4 small pizzas for 6 toppings each. Well, 4 times 6 is 24, and the price for this deal was $24. Or it was 3 medium pizzas with up to 8 toppings each. 3 times 8 equals 24, and the price was $24. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but psychology can explain it. As children, we, in our math class, were drilled with very simple math problems in order to get us used to the whole concept of math, to the point where we started to have association develop between these different operands. For example, if I say 2 times 6, you immediately think 12. You don't actually have to do any calculations or math in your head. It's been ingrained into your brain. You just instinctively know that 2 times 6 is 12. Because of associations like this, your brain processes them more fluently than if we actually had to figure out the sum or the product. Now back to the Pizza Hut ads. Because ads 3 and 4 contain multiples of the $24, 4 times 6 and 3 times 8, respectively, customers could process the $24 more easily. The price just feels right to them. This tactic can also be used with small and large prices. If you're offering a $20 product and you want to put it on sale for $15, well, next to the price, you may want to indicate that it's a 3-day sale where you save $5. 3 times 5 is 15, the price that you're asking for now. Or maybe one of your clients, you want to help them out, so you offer 4 weekly 30-minute coaching calls for $120. Well, 4 weekly 30-minute calls, that's 4 times 30, is $120. Or maybe it could be something like a webinar might sell a training course and they're asking $500 for the training course. But if you sign up today before the end of the webinar, we'll throw in 5 bonus ebooks at a value of $100. 5 ebooks, total value of $100. 5 times 100 is 500, and you're asking $500 for the webinar. This just mentally makes the price easier to process because of the multiples. So that's tactic 11. Now, tactic 12 is use the right amount of roundedness, meaning instead of using non-rounded prices, such as $97.76, use the rounded price of $98. Now, a study done in 2015 found that rounded prices were processed fluently, whereas non-rounded prices were processed disfluently. Now, this tactic seems to contradict tactic number 9 a little bit that I shared with you last week. Tactic 9 said to use precise numbers instead of rounded numbers because people assume rounded prices are artificially higher, as if you, pluck them out of thin air. However, there is a time when round numbers are preferred. And that's when emotion plays a part in the purchase. Because it turns out that rounded prices, because they are fluently processed, work better for emotional purchases. And the opposite is true for non-rounded prices, causing people to use more mental resources to process the number. These are good for rational purchases. So if you're trying to appeal to someone's emotions, such as maybe you're asking for donations to a charity, or you want them to support some fundraiser, or something like that, where you're hitting them on an emotional level, remove the cents and just round to the nearest dollar. So instead of $97 and whatever 76 cents, round it up to $98. However, if you want somebody to make a rational decision, such as buying a belt, include the cents in the price, and it'll help sell the product. So that was tactic 12. Now, tactic 13 is tailor prices toward names and birthdays. Now, I admit this tactic is a bit weird, but there is a lot of scientific research to support it, although I have no idea how you would actually put this to use. But a 2014 study found that customers prefer prices that contain the same letters as their name or numbers as their birthday. For example, someone named Frank might be more agreeable to a product priced at $55 because 50 and 5 both start with an F, the same letter as his first name. This principle is called implicit egotism. It causes us to subconsciously gravitate towards things that resemble ourselves, including our names and the numbers in our birthday. Now, I know it sounds strange, but I can't argue the birthday thing. My birthday is on the 26th, and I know that whenever I see the number 26 somewhere, I'll notice it. It doesn't matter what it's for. I see the 26 and it kind of pops out at me. So, I don't know, maybe the next time you're submitting a quote to a client, adjust the price to suit their name. If their name's Frank, put it at $55. If their name's Sam, put it at $66. You never know. Yeah, well, let's move on to tactic number 14. Tactic 14 is show prices at the optimal time. Now, unlike the previous tactic, this one does make a lot of sense. It asks, what should you display first? The product or your price? Or the service and your price? A 2015 study found that the order that the product and price is displayed influences the criteria that a buyer uses when making their decision. When a product is displayed first and the price is to the right of it, the buyer bases their purchase decision on the quality of the product. But when a price is displayed to the left of a product, so they see the price and then they see the product, the buyer then bases their purchase decision on the value of the product. So the quality of the product or the value of the product. So when the product is before the price, people ask themselves, do I like this product? But those same people, if the price is put before the product, they will ask themselves, is this product worth it? So how do you put this one into practice? Well, the same study determined that if you're trying to sell, say, a luxury product or a luxury service or a high-end product or high-end service, you want people to base their decision on the quality of the product or the quality of the service. Therefore, you show the product or the service before showing the price. A good example of this is a jewelry store. Jewelry stores want customers to focus on the product. They want them to fall in love with the ring, with the necklace, whatever it is, before they see the price. Hopefully, that's enough to sway their purchasing decision. Now, the opposite is true for utilitarian and economic products, such as, flash drives or batteries in a store. You want to display the price first so the customer sees the economic value of the purchase. That's why when you're standing at a cash, most of the stuff there will show the price first. If you have, say you're at a electronics store or something and they've got a tub full of flash drives on the counter, they'll put the price, $9.99, and then they'll put next to it what it is. Well, that price is because they want to anchor in that this is a great value before you even find out what the product is. And for luxury things, you'll see this often on landing pages where they talk about all the product and everything it does, all the great things you can accomplish if you purchase this thing. And you have to scroll way to the bottom of the page to find out what the price is. It's because they're hoping by the time you get down to the price, you've realized that, wow, this is something I really need. And it doesn't matter what the price is, I'm going to buy it. So show the price at an optimal time depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Now, tactic number 15 is display red prices to men. This is another one that I'm not 100% sure of. Now, it's probably because it makes men, of which, of course, I'm one of them, seem just simple-minded. Okay, ladies, I could feel you nodding your head. Please stop. But a 2013 study found that men are more likely to buy something when the price is displayed in red. Now, this study noticed that men seem to process ads in less in-depth detail and use the price, the red price, as the visual focus in order to judge the perceived value of the savings or of the offer of whatever it was. Meaning that when presented with a price in red, men are less likely to compare the product's other attributes. They kind of diminish the importance of the photos and the listed features and the benefits and all that and focus on the red price. Now, again, I think this one is a little ridiculous, but studies have proven that the color red increases arousal. So, who knows? Maybe that explains it. Moving on. Tactic 16. Start negotiating with a higher precise number. In my opinion, this tactic applies more to products than it is for services, but I suppose you can get it to work. The trick is to use a higher anchor price in order to drive up the selling price. You'll see this tactic often used with higher priced items such as cars and furniture or high-end electronics. It's often referred to as an MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price. When you go to buy a new car, for example, there'll be a sticker on the vehicle that will often display two prices: the price that the manufacturer suggests the car sells at and the price that the dealer is actually selling the car at. And I can guarantee you that the dealer price is always way lower than the MSRP, because that MSRP is there to create an anchor or an established value, making the dealer price seem like, wow, what a great deal. Now, I suppose you can use this if you offer packages to your clients. For example, maybe you offer a package service, something, I don't know, maybe you package for social media or for stationery or whatever. You offer a package service to your clients for, say, a fixed price of $800. But next to it, you mentioned that it's a $1,000 value if they were to buy each of those individual services outside of the package. Well, that $1,000 creates an anchor price. They know that it's a value of $1,000, but they're getting it for $800. This is another thing you can do with retainers. A lot of designers use this with retainers. They can say that normally I would charge this amount per whatever. Say your retainer is for hours. You can say my regular rate is $100 an hour, but if you purchase 10 hours a month from me, I'll charge you $800. So you're saving $20 per hour. So you're creating the anchor price by telling them what your regular price would be, but if they buy the retainer from you, they're getting a discount. Now, a 2004 study on eBay showed that whenever somebody was creating an auction, if they put a high reserve price, and for those of you who don't know, the reserve price is the price that needs to be met in order for the item to sell. If the auction doesn't get up to that price, the item doesn't sell. If it goes over the reserve price, then whoever bid the highest gets the item. Well, higher reserve prices creates an anchor towards the higher end of the price spectrum, resulting in more people bidding because they just perceive it as a better value or a higher priced item. And in the long run, the seller making more money. Now, another study done in 2008 found that using a precise value, again, not a rounded price, but a precise value as the anchor price, also produced better results. When people were put into a study and asked to estimate the actual price of a plasma TV based on the suggested retail price of either $4,998 and even $5,000 or $5,012, the researchers found that the average estimated price was much higher for the two prices that were not rounded by several $100s. So people that were asked to estimate the price based on a MSRP of $5,000 estimated the actual price much lower than those asked for the other two prices. I found that really interesting. Now, tactic 17 is to expose people to higher incidental prices. I just talked about anchor prices and how setting a high anchor price can make the actual price seem like a really good deal. Well, that tactic works great for higher priced items. But what if you're trying to use lower prices? Well, a 2004 study showed that vendors were able to ask more for an item if they placed it next to a higher priced item, even if it's not the same item. For example, a clothing store sells belts for $15 each. When the belt rack is placed near, say, a rack of $25 pants, the store will maybe sell one or two belts. However, when they move the belt rack next to a rack of $80 pants, they sell a lot more belts. The fact that the belts are next to a product of a much higher incidental price causes their appeal to go up and makes people purchase them more. So if you offer a service or a product in your business, it might be a good idea to mention some of the other higher price services that you have in order to make the current selection seem like a great deal. Now, this also plays into the 3-tiered pricing method that I talked about back in episode 145, where you show 3 prices, one low price that they barely get anything for, then the middle price is the one you're really hoping they go for, and then you show a higher price that gives them a lot more, but it's usually more than what they really need. And by showing them that high price, then all of a sudden they look at the middle price, which is the one you want them to buy, and it's much more appealing compared to that high price. Now, the 3-tiered method has a lot of other positives to it. And if you haven't listened to that episode, or if you don't remember it, please go back and listen to it, resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 145. It's worth it. So once again, if you offer a service, it might be a good idea to mention some other higher price services you have in order to make the current selection seem like a great deal. And that brings us to tactic 18. Expose people to any high number. So continuing on the topic of anchor prices, this same tactic can be used not only with prices, but with any number. A 2003 study did a test with rare wines. They asked participants whether they would purchase the wine for the dollar amount equal to the last 2 digits of their social security number. After receiving either a yes or no answer, the researchers asked the participants to state the exact dollar amount they would be willing to pay for the wine. Now, remarkably, they found a direct correlation between the purchaser's social security number and the prices they would be willing to pay for the wine. Those with a social security number ending with either 00 all the way up to 19, they were willing to pay $16 for that bottle of wine. Those with a social security number ending between 20 and 39 were willing to pay $26. Those ending in 40 to 59 were willing to pay $29. Those ending in 60 to 79 were willing to pay $35. And people with a social security number ending between 80 and 99 were willing to pay $56 for the same bottle of wine. Now, obviously, you're not going to ask your customers for their social security numbers, but you can expose them to a high anchor number just the same. For example, on my podcast branding website, I sell podcast artwork for the fixed price of $295. Now, below that price, I could mention that I've designed artwork for over 400 podcasts. And even though that 400 isn't a price, it still acts as an anchor, which psychologically affects the perception of the 295, making it seem like a lower price because they're seeing the 400 right there. I just put that in as an example, but I might actually go do that on my website. I think I'm going to end it here. I gave you another great bunch of tactics to consider, and I don't want to overwhelm you again, but I will be back next week with even more ways to use psychology when displaying prices. Now, I would love to know if you've gotten any use out of this or last week's episode. Please send me an email, feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com. Now, as promised, I have a tip of the week with you here that'll help you whenever you're creating layouts to make sure you don't miss anything. I shared this in the Resourceful Designer community, and somebody said, "Oh, you have to say this on the podcast. This is a brilliant tip." And to me, it's just something I've been doing this for 20, maybe even 30 years. Like ever since I've been using a computer for design, I've been using this trick. And this mostly applies to or I should say especially applies to whenever I am redoing something. Like, for example, I have a flyer that I do for a client every year, and he takes this flyer to trade shows. Well, every year he wants me to update some of the stuff. He'll have some new testimonials to put on it. He'll update his prices. Some of the wording on it he might change, but overall, the layout of the flyer remains the same. So what I do is every year when he tells me, Mark, it's time to update the flyer, I open up the flyer in my page layout program. In my case, that's Quark Express. You may be using InDesign or whatever. But I open it up, and the very first thing I do is I take all the text and I color it magenta. Doesn't matter where it is, if it's a heading or a body copy or whatever, I color all the text magenta. Then every image on the document, I add a magenta frame around it. Whether there's a frame on the image to begin with or not, I add a magenta frame. Even if it's not a square image, if it's just like a graphic that's in the middle, I'll put a magenta frame around the graphic. Now, the reason I do this is so that I can easily spot what needs to be changed. Then, when he provides me with the changes, I can easily go through and see. He'll tell me on the cover of the brochure, we're not going to touch anything. Okay, I go back and I recolor it to whatever it needed to be. Then on the inside, he'll say, okay, well, these prices stay the same. I'll recolor them back to black. But these prices change. Well, then I'll change them. And once they're changed, then I color them to black. And I do the same thing. If he tells me a picture changes, I make sure I change it. Once the picture is changed, I remove the magenta frame around it. And at the end, once I've gone through his list of all the changes he wants, then I could look at the document and say, okay, where do I still see magenta showing? Now, you can use any color you want. I've just always used magenta because it really pops out at you. And I'll go through, and if I see some text that's magenta, then I question, okay, is that text that just should be the same, or is there something that needs to change there? And I'll look through the documentation. If nothing is mentioned, maybe I'll ask the client, does that have to change? If it's something like, if it's their phone number and I know their phone number hasn't changed, then I'll just go ahead and change it back to black. But this way I can go through this entire process, and as long as I see magenta, I know there's something to change. And at the end, when I'm flipping through, if it's a multi-page brochure or booklet or something, I could flip through. And if I see no magenta, then I know everything is completed. So that's just a little trick that I picked up. I don't even know how long ago. I was back at the print shop. I was doing this, and I still do that to this day. If I am doing especially if I'm copying or using something that I've used before, updating something from a past project and doing some changes to it, the very first thing I do is I create a new version of the document, color everything magenta, and then work my way back to bring it to its original colors. And that way I make sure that I never miss anything. Because it's a really bad feeling when you send something, especially to be printed, and get it back and realize, oh, I was supposed to do this and I forgot. So this way, I never forget. So as I mentioned, this was a tip I shared in the Resourceful Designer community, and they just loved it. And one of them said, do you need to share this on the podcast? So here we go. Now, there's a lot more going on in the Resourceful Designer community, lots of tips, lots of great advice, lots of encouragement, suggestions, lots, just, you wouldn't believe the friendships and the partnerships that are being formed. I love hearing about all the people working together, people hiring each other to do different things, people ordering products from other people. Like some of them, there's one person in the community that she does stickers, while somebody else ordered stickers from her, and so forth. It just becomes one of those places that you trust each other. So when you ask for somebody's opinion, you know you're getting an honest and opinion that you can trust, that you can rely on. Right there's value involved in that. So if you're looking for a group of designers who are like you, we're at different stages of our career, but we are all trying to work to better ourselves and better our design business, whether you're just starting off or you've got an established business. There's something for you in the community. So to find out more, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/community and join today. So that's it for me. I'll continue the psychology of pricing next week with even more tactics that you can follow. Until then, I am Mark DeCote, wishing you all the best with your design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.